I hope you've enjoyed painting or learning to paint with me. And now I'm going to take you through some finished work and try to inspire you. I know that you're going to thoroughly enjoy the art world that you're entering into. Take it slowly, enjoy each step, and I'm just going to show you some of the finished pieces now that I have after I have spent years learning my craft. Now this is one of my pieces. I love to paint roses, and you know that. And I try to get them in all different types of roses, and roses doing all types of things. And I do, and I've told you that I really admire Franz Bischoff, and I have tried to follow his very, very interesting brushstrokes that he was the creator of. And to get that watercolor look, that nice, loose, direct painting approach, that has always been something that I have thoroughly enjoyed. So I do want you to see some of the works that I'm most proud of in my achievements in porcelain. You want to always do little practice subjects to give you an idea of what the paint will look like after it's fired. Now I chose red for this one practice subject to see what reds I could use out of my palette that would actually work in my composition. And so you'll see my little practice subject on small tiles that you can pick up anywhere. Now the red has also been added to the green to produce the leaves once I had decided on the value of the leaves. So you can see how these little practice subjects are very, very good before you start your big painting. Now over here on the right, you'll see how when I redo my palette, if I've added any new paints that I did not have before, I do practice samples and put these through the jewelry kiln to make sure of how they're going to look after they're fired. This is very important. You want to be sure you're aware of every one of your colors, what's going to happen after it's fired. Two more practice samples. Over here I have buds, a little bit of leaf, and right next to it a spent flower that has already dropped its petals. It's good to have these just to refer to if you want. Over here I have a pale pink rose, and I showed a little bit of composition and background color as well. But notice I placed in dark on one side. When you practice, make your practice subjects interesting. I chose to show you this particular tile. I have a yellow rose, and the yellow rose is very popular. So I've used my darks, my lights, and my midtones on my practice subject. Now down at the bottom, you can ignore that. That's just another sample of what I had on my palette. Now to the left, you will see that I did a peony. That's just the beginning of what the peony actually looks like. But keep lots of these practice subjects. They're very good to have on hand. I used pink roses to create a really interesting composition, and that's what I concentrated on. I have a dark center in the rose and dark centers in the lesser roses, but basically it is composition. My very dearest friend is Kari-Yun Pei. She and I have painted together for hundreds of years, and I do want you to see one of her beautiful pieces. She's used the pink rose, and it's just absolutely gorgeous, and I just had to include that. She's a great painter, and I love her dearly. Now, this vase has the subtle, beautiful leaves that I want you to notice. And notice the a subtle suggestion of the flowers. And this is you can take some of the flowers and literally take them off the edge, but you want to create the roundness and where you're going to use your composition going around the vase, not just flat or up and down, but around the vase. But notice the beautiful soft leaves and why they were used that way. This is the largest vase that I have done, and it's actually called the Bischoff vase, designed and patterned very much after Franz Bischoff. I'm talking about the blank. Now, I have placed all my roses in value as well as color. I made my compositions work from top to bottom using different colors and different values on this one. This is sort of like the college after you have gone through all of the rough things in life in learning. This is the ultimate for me. I really enjoyed painting this vase. This is a family piece. I did this for my daughter-in-law, and she loves yellow roses. They are her favorite. So I painted yellow roses with a contrasting rose, going a little bit more to the warm. As you'll see, I've added a little bit of a kind of a salmon-colored rose on there as well. Now, I worked my composition carefully using my leaves, and if you will notice, I've even added the bug bites to the leaves that I've talked to you about. It's a fun thing to do. And also getting some of the detail. You'll see in this particular rose up here that we have a center where the little stamens are used in that, and it's just about ready to start to drop its petals. But you'll notice the interesting composition. Now notice this rose down here is going out off the edge. You're only seeing half of it. So don't be afraid to do that. Notice up here, we have leaves that are going out, and it's perfectly all right to do that. I have a dark area here and a slightly dark area here, but an interesting composition. Now, this is a very large bowl, as you can see. And what I did, I painted underneath, just like I did on top, and used the same colors, maybe changing some of the colors a little, and adding that enough of the yellow roses so that it creates a good working together. It looks like it belongs. Now, when you put this vase on a mirror, you're going to see the underside part of the vase in the mirror. It's really fun, very interesting, and like I said, this is a family piece. This stays in the family forever. This belongs to my daughter-in-law. Now we're doing seascape. I've used my rock as my important part of the composition and the splash against it. Rocks and water are basically all you're using in seascapes. Now, I concentrated on color on this. I made sure that my color was in the greenish blue grays all the way through. And I have a cloud pattern on this that I don't always put into seascapes. But this made an interesting composition showing the combination of waves all in the same color configuration. And the rocks also have the same color configurations, going darker, of course. I concentrated mostly on the cliffs and the sky in this seascape. This is a specific spot, and I painted it on location. The sky was windswept, beautifully windswept that day, and the cliffs are very popular. It's called Pismo Beach, California. Basically, that's all I wanted. I chose a plate that already had a rim, a dark gray rim. And then I used those same colors to create the images on the surface. I used a blue in the ocean and a dark green in the foreground to create the dark. I did this from a photograph, and that's exactly the way I saw it and wanted that foreground water to be done. This is a big tile. It's just, and you can buy these, and you can have a lot of fun doing them, but you have to have a large kiln. Now, I want you to notice how I softened my rock area and painted my rocks a little less black and kept them a little bit more into the softer grays. The whole painting is soft and ethereal, and that's what I wanted to do. Even the clouds in the sky are soft and dreamy compared to some of the more harsh cloud areas. This whole painting was done from a photograph, and I carefully selected my blues to go back to horizon and keep the horizon very soft. Now, if you'll notice, I'm very near center on the horizon, but it's so soft you will never know it. Now, this is the finished piece that we did as a lesson. And I want you to notice that we have a swell here behind the light wave and a darker area under the light wave in the back. Just realize that you do not have contrast. If you don't have contrast, you will not be able to show the image. So the crashing over of the wave is very good to show in the foreground. And also, I used violet in the very foreground water in order to change this from the blues in the horizon and the blue-greens in the swell. Now, the swell in the ocean is where the water starts to rise but has not yet broken over. So that will be dark because it's not parallel to the sky. The sky being light, it would show light if it were parallel, but it's not. The area under the swell shows the light from the sky. I chose an interesting sky for this painting and an even more interesting water for this painting. The trees just are there, and they help to create the composition. But if you'll notice, the water is actually moving. And I can just about feel that the clouds are moving as well. We want to keep action in this painting, and it's a good composition. And the color's good. I try to pick several different subjects for my landscape painting. This is Indio, California, where my kids had lived for many, many years. Verbena is one of the most beautiful wildflowers that you can paint. And this was actually done from a photograph taken right there. I used the foreground mountains, the soft background mountains, a very soft cloud pattern, but most of all, the verbena. This was painted on location in Atascadero, California. Now, it's a one fire, meaning that I would like to add things to this painting. And so I will just add these. But this is what I do when I go out on location and paint for the first fire. Then I add the things that I want to add later to make it into a really interesting composition. But right here, you're seeing the first fire. Now, this was taken from a photograph that I took in the fall of the year here in Nevada. And you'll see that the rocks are light. The background has a lot of color in it from the aspen trees. And the water is washing over the rocks. I kept this whole composition dark on purpose. I wanted to concentrate on that gorgeous color of the aspen trees. Now, when I'm out on location, I try to find interesting structures. And this is a barn very near where I used to live in Nipomo. And you'll notice that the trees are very beautifully done with little spots of sky showing through them. Now, down in the foreground, I added my soft springtime greens, but the barn is very typical of what you see in California, and I like doing it on location. And I used a rim plate for this with all of the colors that's in the rim, in the barn, and in the trees. And also showing the windmill back there. That was actually there. And a lot of fun to paint structures when you're on location. Now I like to, after I've painted it, I put it into a empty film can to get it home safely without a smudge. This is something that I wanted to share with you. I took a 16 by 20 frame, and I have had a glass cut for it, and then I had masonite cut for the back with a slightly smaller hole made in the masonite, stretching a material over that and framing it in that manner. Works great. Now, this is a painting that I did from a magazine, so I had to change it. I changed it just slightly, but I got the rushing water the same way as I saw it was an actual photograph, and the soft mountains in the back are completely different than the ones in the photograph. So this is a Pike painting, not something that I copied. I literally composed it. This was our landscape lesson. I used the very high, large peaks in the Sierra Nevada mountains, and I chose my values carefully to make sure that I had the right value. I used the pinon pines, which are in this area, and we don't have the great big tall trees here. We have the pinon pines and the aspen trees. So I put both of those in. Now, if you will notice, way back here, I have some tiny little buildings. The size of your building will determine the height of your mountain. So I use small buildings to show the majestic height of those tall peaks. One of our lessons was on painting the fantail goldfish. Now, if you have a customer that wants a particular thing, you pretty much have to do what that customer wants. This particular painting, the customer wanted larger fish and less of the sea grasses, the undersea grasses that I like to put in, and selected the colors. So you will often do something that might be a little different than what you'd like to do because it's a commission. And it does work, and you don't want to pass up a good sale. So I'm suggesting this to whatever you would like to do with the goldfish. You may need them in several different colors. Here's another example of one of the fish bowls that I paint. Now, this, if you'll notice, there are many fish on this smaller bowl. Some people like to order the smaller bowls because they don't have room for the great big ones. And this little guy right here is George. He's one of my favorite fish. I like him, so I named him. But if you put this on a turntable, you will find that it's very interesting to your guests that come to the house to get to watch the fish swim. So enjoy painting your goldfish on a smaller bowl. Now, this is one of the finished pieces of the large fish bowls that I do. Now, what you want to concentrate on when you're working on a big surface like this Be sure that you get your fish going in every direction. Some facing you, some going away. This one is going away. This one is heading down towards the bottom to feed. This one is coming up. This one over here is a calico. Down here we have another angle. Every fish should be slightly different. And I was just saying, you've got to think that there's never been two fantail goldfish ever created that were alike. They're all slightly different. We have bug-eyed fish. We have some that have their mouths open, most of them with their mouths closed. And have fun with your goldfish. Enjoy every single one of them. As you work around these bowls, you can, but finish all the fish first. I'm giving you a slight glimpse of some of the work that I do other than what we have studied. And I want you to know that there's no limit to what you could do in porcelain. It is a fabulous medium, and you could sit down and do it. It's just wonderful. I paint grapes, I paint wisteria, I paint parrots, I paint butterflies, and I love the monarch butterflies because I lived where we actually saw them migrate. So you can see how backgrounds are handled, how subject matter is handled. Enjoy everything that you're doing in the porcelain art world. It's limitless. You can enjoy every day. And bless you all.